Hello and welcome to a brand new video. Today again we'll discuss Ibn Taymiyya. In the last video we explained his views on the relationship between reason and revelation, and that true reason and true revelation can never contradict. However, today we're going to build on that idea and explain his idea of creation, more specifically perpetual creation, or the idea that God has always been creating since eternity past. So Ibn Taymiyya states, quote, "It is the very act of will, together with power, that necessitates the act of creation, just as it necessitates speech. Creation does not depend on another creation. It depends on the prior act of will through which it happens. So, whenever he creates something, he wills to create something else, and whatever he wills happens, and whatever he does not will does not happen." Therefore, according to Ibn Taymiyya, creation does not depend on a prior material cause or something external to God, but rather is according to his will. God's will is not arbitrary because it's always tied to the previous act of creation. So in the quote above, he mentions prior creation in general as the groundwork for God's will to create the next thing, and it's the context for God's will to perform further actions. Therefore, God must have always been creating from eternity past. However, this doesn't mean that creation without a prior material cause is intrinsically impossible, but this is under dispute whether Ibn Taymiyya held this, or that God constantly prepares material causes in order to originate their subsequent effects. So even in the latter position, none of the particular material entities accompany him from eternity, or God from eternity. That being said, I agree with the former interpretation. Either way, for Ibn Taymiyya, God's creativity and wisdom is shown in creating one thing from a different thing, rather than creating ex nihilo or out of nothing. So Ibn Taymiyya argues that God changing from not creating to creating introduces imperfections into God, and therefore a perfect God will always be creating. So God couldn't have begun creating at some arbitrary point in the past without preceding cause. So to quote Ibn Taymiyya, "As God is creator of everything, everything other than him is created and preceded by non-existence. So, with him there's nothing eternal by virtue of his eternity. When it is said that he has been creating from eternity, its meaning is that he's been creating one created thing after another from eternity, just as he will be creating one created thing after another to eternity. That which we deny, i.e. eternity, we deny of originating events and movements one after another. There is nothing in this except an ascription to him of perpetuity of acting, not an ascription of one among the things he has done being him eternally in his concrete entity." He also states, quote, "God has been active from eternity, when he willed with acts that subsist in himself by his power and his will one after another. He has been speaking from eternity by his will, and he has been acting from eternity by his will, one thing after another." Overall, Ibn Taymiyya's view of perpetual creation states that the series of created things extends infinitely into the past, with every particular created creature having a beginning in time after not existing at all. With this idea of perpetual creation, since Ibn Taymiyya believes that God acts in succession or is a dynamic creator, time would also be eternal. This would lend to a relational view of time rather than a substantial view of time. And what that basically means is that one thing occurs after another. Time is just a relation between things, rather than if I say that God created this or God created this mug, that's a substance. Like God created time, that'd be a substance. So he believes that time is just a relation. So this would also, that means time in this relational sense is based on God's existence and activity. And one might also say that time is also eternal, since God acts eternally. And you can also say that maybe that time might be an attribute of God, since it's also eternal. So while each created thing has a beginning, the process of creation itself is without first moment. So this refutes the idea that God remains inactive for eternity and then suddenly decides to create. So therefore it avoids the question of, quote, like, why did God create at this moment rather than another moment? And so another possible solution is to posit that God was timeless before creation or without creation, and was with time with creation. So the idea that, or the question of why God created at a particular moment is meaningless because there is no temporal moment before creation for comparison. And this is the solution offered by Dr. William Lane Craig, but I'm sure Ibn Taymiyya would reject this idea. So I forgot to mention, there's this book. It's a really good book. If you can read any book on Ibn Taymiyya, it would be this book. It's called Ibn Taymiyya Expounds on Islam. Selected writings of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyya on Islamic faith, life, and society. And it goes over his doctrine of perpetual creation. I'm just going to put up some pages of this book, and it's going to probably help you understand his doctrine better. So that brings us to the end of this video, and hopefully that made sense. And if you have any questions regarding Ibn Taymiyya's doctrine of perpetual creation, I'll be sure to answer them in the comments below. So don't forget to like and subscribe as always.